How's everybody doing? It's extremely nice of you to join me today, as I'd be doing what I do most days, talk to myself. Can everyone hear me? Okay, we've got a couple of things I want to clear up. Not clear up actually, but I just got to put out there. Today, I've made an effort to be more organised and structured in this sermon. And the simple reason is this, that we are calling an assistant minister. And no longer can I get by with my stunning good looks and charisma. I'm going to have to be structured, so I'm working hard at that. And the other thing, can you remember when Sam preached here? If you weren't here, Sam was preaching. He was talking about the popular kids coming and knocking on his door and taking him out to play ball with him. And he was so excited. The popular kids want me. So they lured him out with a false pretense to play ball with him. Once they got him to the park, they beat him up. And he was only like in 5th grade or something, I think he said. And I was like, who does that? Kids. And the thing I liked about the story was that Sam was able to go back home and talk to his dad about it. And his dad was able to affirm him and say, it's okay, things happen. So what I want to put out there, and I was thinking about this when he was preaching that, we are a generational church, right? Kids in our church are very important to us. That's why they're in with us. They're a part of our community. So to the children out there, not only am I a minister of pastoral care for the adults, I'm also a minister of pastoral care for the kids. Pastor Tim is a pastor for the kids. If you are in a situation like that and you need someone to talk about it and you don't have anybody to talk about it, please come and see us. Because sometimes it's important to get things off your chest, and if you don't have the right people, we're here for you because we love you. We've got your back. So with that being said, let's get on to the sermon, hey? So, I'm going to start this sermon with a scripture found in Luke 18, verse 10 to 14. If you're familiar with this, it says this: 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself: God, thank you that I am not like the others, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, God, be merciful on me, for I am a sinner. I tell you, this man went to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted. There's a scripture that talks about a broken heart and the contrite spirit God does not despise. This contrite spirit is a sense of humility, and it's lacking sometimes in our culture, and it's lacking sometimes in our relationships. Today I want to, Jeff, will you pass that around? Today I want to talk about a story that a friend of mine who is a Anglican priest, who is also a chaplain at the hospital I work at, he tells this story about the Diamond Willow. And the beauty of the Diamond Willow is found in its woundings. So I want to send around a Diamond Willow just so you can have a look at it and have a look at how beautiful this piece of wood is. And OJ talks about the brokenness, grace and restoration that he found through working on that very piece of wood. Chaplain OJ uses this story of the Diamond Willow when he gives spiritual care groups in behavioural health units at our hospital. And before you ask, yes, it applies to you. Because we've all had times in our lives when we've felt broken and we've felt overwhelmed, and we felt as if we're not going to get through. We've needed somebody. That behind me, believe it or not, is a tree. That was a joke. Now, come on, people. All right? We know it's a tree. And it's damaged. And the reasons it's damaged is twofold. Because of external environmental conditions, but also internal viruses and infections in the tree. The tree is broken and it does not look very good. As opposed to this. This is a diamond willow, and that's the piece of wood that I'm sending around to you. The first one wasn't worked on. This one is completed, and I'm a bit biased, but I think it's beautiful. That is not Father OJ. That is my dog Ted. I give him a haircut, and the kids were worried about him getting sunburnt. That is Father OJ, and he's the guy where I got this story from. Thank you. So, do you know what a diamond willow is? Said Trapper Ray to OJ telling his story. OJ said no, and I was thinking, it is the same thing as a boomerang that doesn't come back. Unless it's worked on, it's just a stick. You've got to work on it for it to be something. And it's a bit like our lives. We've got to work on ourselves so we can work through stuff. So this is how OJ describes the story he tells about the diamond willow. That evening, around a roaring campfire with a knife in one hand, the diamond willow in the other, I began to peel the bark. I could not believe what I was seeing. Deep red diamonds appeared hidden under the bark, just as Trapper Ray had foretold. So, because OJ went to this place, he's seen this beautiful banister, and it caught his eye, and he goes, "What's that?" He goes, "That's a diamond willow banister," and he had no idea what it was. So that's how this story comes about. As OJ's digging out this bark and taking out the wood, a thought erupted from my mind, but it was a thought attached to my soul. The beauty of this diamond willow is in its wounding. Thank you. Suddenly, he says, my life was uncovered before me. The diamond willow became a metaphor for me. The more I peeled the hidden beauty, the more I saw the woundings in my own journey. Red woundings, bleeding diamonds, some shallow and some small, deep and large, big enough to fall into. We can all identify with that. We can all identify with pain, and we can all identify with hurt, and we can all identify with the reality that we put up safeguards. We protect ourselves from the hurts we've experienced, and we protect ourselves from any perceived future hurts. We want to be protected. We want to put security around us, and that's not bad. But it's not, some of the security we create for ourselves doesn't last a distance because life happens to all of us. When I had done peeling, when I had the peeling done, another thought flooded into me. If you don't peel back the bark in your life, you will never see the hidden beauty. No peeling back the bark, no beauty in the wounds. It's just going to be like that tree with no... I thought it was beautiful without the bark coming off actually, but it wouldn't work for the story. This piece of wood's a little bit better. So as he's doing the digging, he goes, I began to identify my sufferings according to their impact, depth in my life. Tears flowed, although I did not yet see the beauty behind my crusted over bark. It was much easier and safer to peel back the bark than the coverings hidden my wounding soul. How many times have we experienced something and we just got to do something to keep us busy because we can't reflect on the pain that we're feeling? Only if I could do this and I'll keep myself busy and I'll go there and I'll move this and I'll do that because it distracts me. from having to deal with the pain I'm feeling, and it distracts me from having to start working and peeling back some of the pain of my hurts. He goes, since that time I've learned that not only is there beauty in a diamond willow, which makes it such a collector's price, but also the very damaged diamond, wounded later, becomes the strongest part of the wood. What was once the weakness and once what caused it, its ugliness, becomes the most established and strengthened part of the wood. So the diamond willow is known for its beauty and strength, impossible without wounding and without peeling back the bark. We have hidden treasures and we have hidden strength, and we don't realise it until we're put through the test of being human. So this is what OJ talks about the grace of God. And he gives a step on how one should start peeling back the bark. Own the original wound, pain or discomfort. Name it, identify it. Don't keep it hidden. Get it out in the open, on the table. And so often why we can't get it out on the table, I think, is because we don't want to be rejected and we don't want to open up that wound to people, because we know that people don't understand the wound and how we're feeling. We don't want to make ourselves vulnerable, because being vulnerable is ucky. And being vulnerable is like, oh, I don't really want to be vulnerable. But this is God's protecting grace. And it says, invite God into it, no matter how deep it goes. How often have we had to work through something and we get to a certain point and we go, we can't go any further, it hurts too much. I can't dig any deeper because the ramifications of digging might end a relationship, or it might start some trouble that I don't really want to deal with. It might make me face some reality in my life. But the reality is, we need to dig. And as we do, we need to know that God's attending grace is with us. God's made us a promise. Nothing can separate you from the love of God. Nothing. So this is important. This is important. Take one wound at a time. Don't peel them all back. It's too much. I'm almost 23 years of age. I've experienced a bit of hurt, like we all have. And we want to become perfect straight away. Whatever our ideal image of perfection is, we want to be that. So we say, only if I can change this about myself, only if I can be like this, only if I can be like that, and only if I can be like this. And we become a contortionist. That's a big word, isn't it? You're a school teacher, Terry? Yes, that's a big word. So we've got to take one thing at a time and allow God's forgiving grace to work through it in us. And why do we do this? Because we want to become more like Christ. We want to be the salt of the earth. We want to be the light to the world. We want to be a people of compassion and empathy, a people of grace. So we need to work on that in our own lives. So we've got this sustaining grace. And this is beautiful. Don't let your wound describe you or be your identity. How many times have we've heard people, we've said to ourselves, oh, that person hurt me so much. That person did this to me. They shouldn't have done that. I'll never move on from this. You know? Or we're trying to handle an event that we never created, but it causes us so much grief. With someone's diagnosed with, and I can't imagine, diagnosed with cancer or diagnosed with an illness that could possibly take their life at one point. It becomes their identity. It becomes their world. And Jesus is saying, hey, your identity is in me. This does not define who you are. You're a child of the living God. You're a child of the resurrection hope. I've got your back. This is God's renewing grace. So ask God to show the good that he creates through the wounds. Oh, who wants to do that? Who wants to say, hey, I'm hurting. I'm in the middle of this turmoil. I'm in the middle of this darkness. I'm in the middle of this grief. I'm in the middle of this suffering. I'm in the middle of this loss. And in the words of St. John of the Cross, you're going through the dark night of the soul and God, you don't exist anymore. There's nothing out there. And God's saying, look at the beauty in the wound. This is God's renewing grace. God's got you covered. God's got your back. Allow yourself to draw deeper into an identifying relationship with Christ, who suffered with and for all our wounds. Sometimes I think about Christ on the cross, suffering, broken, in his body and in his mind and in his spirit, and crying out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And I don't need to see a show of hands, because I know everybody in this room has felt like that at one time or another. Why have you forsaken me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? And as you ask that question, acknowledge the fact that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the risen Lord, suffered so we, his people, would know that we have a God who identifies in our sufferings, who identifies in our pains, who identifies in our circumstances. And he doesn't identify with these, I told you this would happen, I understand this would happen because you did stupid things. No. He identifies in our circumstances because he loves us and he displays us grace. And he goes, I'm with you. We'll get through this. I will never let you go. I will never forsake you. I know you're in pain, but my grace is never going to give up. My grace is never going to abandon you. I'm not going to leave you orphaned. I've got your back. This is God's redeeming grace. So this is harvest your sorrows by being open to walk with others who are passing through their wounded process. Avoid judging. Remain compassionately discerning, but for God's sake, build the bridge of encouragement and the door of hope to a new day of blessing others along your way. This is saying we're all broken together. We're in this together, people. We're all suffering. We're all going through our own little journey. And God's called us together as a community. Not so we can judge each other, or not so we can point the finger and point accusations at each other, but so we can say, I love you. Irrespective of what you've been through or what you've done or what's going on in your life, we, your community of Christ, love you. We've got your back. The other day, a sad event happened. It was sad for me because I'm still trying to process it a bit. Does everyone know where, obviously, that Thunderbird Parkway is on 59th? On the south side of that, there's 2 lanes come into one. And I drive a supercharged minivan. No, I don't really. I drive a minivan that hardly makes it up hills when the air conditioning's on. I can make the kids lean forward. Come on, we can do this. So I'm going up this hill, and behind me there's somebody in a pickup truck, and they're tailgating me and making me feel uncomfortable, like threatened, and I got up. I think I can. Got up the top and went, woo, and stopped at the lights. I looked behind me, and this gentleman's getting out of the car. Mind you, this is 7 a.m. Monday morning. He gets out of the car, and thank God for Ted. Ted was in the back, so I had the window down, And this guy just comes to the car, Ted snaps at him a bit, and then he just starts abusing me. Why are you driving slow? I said, mate, I'm in a minivan and I'm going uphill. This is all I've got. But then I thought to myself, why are you so cranky? Why are you angry? I didn't want to engage him with that because I was scared of getting shot. But he gave me a hard time about some of the bumper stickers I have on my car. And then he gave me a hard time about my accent. He had the nerve to call me English. I said, sir, I'm Australian. But the point is, why? Why do we allow life to make us so angry? Why are people wanting to be so confrontational? And we can judge others as much as we can, and that will just make us like Pharisees. I guess it starts with us. I guess the challenge is on us to peel back some of the bark, allow ourselves to be a bit fragile and vulnerable, and say to somebody who's having a rough day, I don't really understand what you're going through, but I'm here to listen. You know that neighbour you don't like? Instead of throwing rocks at his house, bake him a cake, build a bridge, because you don't really know what they're going through. Okay, is that the last one, Diane? Killed it.